Well, I thought a couple of times whether I was going to do video this weekend, and mainly because I didn't have a particular agenda or thought, but I guess we haven't done one of these in a while, and it's Saturday, and I didn't feel like typing. So, and I wrote some notes down here, just some random musings on a sunny Saturday. It looks like here in the beautiful Northeast. Um, what am I thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking. I actually spent some time this morning, since I've been beating myself up much of this year for my performance. I spent some time this morning going back to the fall of '08. I looked at charts, I looked at my performance, and I think it was a helpful exercise as much as I hate to look back, in that it reminded me of what the fall was like in terms of market volatility. And and those were often the days where I just had some massive gains, and certainly we don't have that type of an environment right now. And actually, when I looked at the first 3 quarters of last year, for the most part, it was very similar to what we're seeing now. And the performance actually seemed my performance seemed to be pretty much in line with how last year started. So. I know I've talked a lot about backing off at the beginning of this year, which I did, um, and have been disgruntled at times since I've tried to kick it back in gear. But I guess all things considered, especially since I am not a big believer in ramping up size substantially as your account grows, I personally prefer to trade less of a percentage of your capital, and it makes things easier on your life. Anyway, I'm rambling here, but all things considered, actually, I shouldn't be that hard on myself. I've said before, I think once you figure this business out, which is again a very small minority of people that ever have a go at this, there's usually only one or two things that can prevent you from doing well, and I think one of those things is focus. I've said this over and over again in my own trading this year. February 10th. Is a date that I will never forget. It is stuck in my mind. It reminded me what can happen when one has a lapse of focus. Really, my only true draw of the year. I had a scratch last Monday for a couple thousand, but that was a situation where I was trading size, and I got distracted and couldn't get back on track. The only, effectively, the only loss, the only significant loss of this year, on March 21st, and it just goes to show you that to me it's all about focus. Um, and again, as I go back through my last couple of years of trading, and again looking at last fall, I've got to remind myself that last fall is probably never going to be repeated as long as I have a life on this planet in terms of the volatility that we saw. And B, that I'm very content, or I need to be content, I think, with a certain level of performance, and that's a tough balance for me because, as the quote in the top left corner of the blog states, complacency can't kill you. So I don't know. I guess for me it's a balance of not being complacent, not becoming comfortable, but yet accepting a certain level of performance, which for me obviously has been very tough. Coming over last year, or coming after last year. Um, I've had very good years in the past, don't get me wrong, but there's no doubt that last year turned into a bounty, an avalanche, a bamboo, whatever you want to call it. And so this year has been largely a year of mental adjustment for me to kind of say, okay, that was great, but a lot of that was based on the market conditions, and a 3 month zone that I just happen to never get out of, at least rarely. And that might be a once in a lifetime deal. So again, I need to learn to be content with a certain level of performance while at the same time ramping up my performance, my focus level, so that I can sustain that decent level of performance at the end of the year. So again, I'm rambling a little bit, but that's kind of what's going on inside of my head in terms of how I'm looking at my performance and what I'm planning to do. I do feel, as I said on Friday, that I'm starting to get my head more into this than it had been the first couple of months. And we'll see where that goes. we'll just see where that goes. The year will be what it is, and we'll look back certainly. And we've got 285 days, says the counter, before we can do that. Although Q1, again, I've said March 31st, 10 days from now, going to be a major marker, 1 of 4 for the year. So again, we'll take a look at things at that point. A couple of other thoughts. I mentioned in Friday's post a little bit of, especially in that first chart, I think it helps show a little bit on how I trade. I will trade on the speculative side. Now, forget about providing liquidity, but on the speculative side, I'll take some feeler bets out there. I will trade fairly modest size in order to see, if the market's going to be doing what I think it might do. But if I'm on my game, I certainly shouldn't be putting any size on until I get more confirmation of a move. And again, with my style, I can always trade better if I'm in the market. My transaction costs are fairly low as a member of the Merc, and I've touched on this in several posts in the past. But I can feel the current better if I'm swimming in the water. And when I had to stop on those couple of long probes, which again for me, and I say scratch stop, whether it's a small gain, small loss, it's not relative to me or important in terms of the terminology. But the point is, it wasn't working. And I think if I click on here, I think the last out on that long probe was 780 and a quarter, or I'm sorry, 778 and a half, which was almost 2 points off of one of my buys, which for me is pretty odd, especially if I think there's potential going the other way. So to me, that just gave me more conviction that there was likely going to be a breakdown. It may not have happened, but if it did, I certainly felt it a little bit as a stuck long. But I wasn't really stuck. But again, like poker, if you can get into the mindset of the other traders who are really stuck, then that's certainly what's going to cause the move if it happens. And anyway, a little bit on how I trade. I don't believe in consistent size. I know some do. Some schools of thought say that that's the only way to trade. Certainly, it adds a level of complexity having to determine what your size will be. But again, most of last year's 1.6 million was largely a result of my going with substantial size when I thought the conditions were right. It works for me. It may not work for everybody. I thought Jules had a great comment the other day. I'm not sure which day it was. I think it was, it was Thursday, in terms of how to use the blog. She's got a great blog that I've visited a couple of times. She talked a little bit about she used to come to my blog and then backed off, and then came back when she felt that she was stronger in terms of reading my thoughts without it necessarily influencing what she did. I just thought that was a great comment, Jules. Nice going. And I like your blog, by the way. I've stopped by a couple times. I just kind of like to see what's out there. So that thought on that. I know there was a post recently about somebody or from somebody who it seemed had hit rock bottom. And I had a conversation via phone not too long ago with a similar trader. And my only comment has been, I've been there. And without being facetious, I almost feel like saying congratulations, because you can't go any lower. If you feel you've hit rock bottom, forget about trading, but in life, look around, see, ask yourself how bad it is. If you've still got your life and your kids and your family, I was there. So if you hit rock bottom, there's no lower to go, and often the climb can be pretty thrilling. I'm still looking at getting a get-together here in the Northeast. I've been talking to the people that have expressed interest in the New England area, the Boston area group. I'm even thinking about maybe publicizing that a little bit more. I say publicizing, at least making everybody be aware of what I'm thinking of doing here. There would be no cost of attending. We'd probably do it on a weekend when the weather gets a little bit better on the Cape. If you're interested, not in the New England area, but if you're interested in flying in for it, great. There would be no cost aside from whatever the facilities and the meals might run. This is not a money-making endeavor for me. If you haven't figured that out after 3/4 of a year of blogging, then you missed the point. So anyway, more updates on that for the local group and for everybody in general. Aside from that, I'm not sure there's not much else to say. Have a great weekend. I'll probably post some text on Sunday. I got a great group, 500 or so consistent followers. Let's keep it going. Let's keep strengthening each other. And again, enjoy your time off this weekend. Take care.